Picture this. The officer closes the door. Recorder is running. You've been in the room for 15 minutes. Then comes the question that matters. You're sitting in a police interrogation room. A detective sits across from you and says, "Help me understand what happened." At that moment, most people think the danger is saying the wrong thing. It isn't. The real danger is continuing to talk when the interrogation has already reached its most important decision point, because the detective has not yet decided whether this conversation is going to end or keep going. And in the next few seconds, your response will make that decision for him. The trap is surprisingly simple. Most people believe they can talk their way out of trouble. So when the detective says things like, "We just want your side of the story. This is your chance to explain. Help us understand what happened." People start talking. They think they're helping themselves. But every answer creates more questions. Every explanation creates more details. And every detail creates more opportunities for misunderstandings, inconsistencies, or statements that can later be used against them. Every video here could save you from a serious mistake one day. Subscribe now so you don't miss what could protect you. Then share this video and drop your opinion below. I want to hear what you think. That's why the most important moment in an interrogation isn't the beginning. It's the moment you decide whether you're going to keep talking. Watch how this usually happens. The detective says, "Look, we're just having a conversation." You reply, "Okay." The detective asks, "Where were you earlier?" You answer. Then another question comes. Then another. Then another. 30 minutes later, you've given far more information than you ever intended. Not because anyone forced you, because you kept agreeing to continue the conversation. And that's exactly what investigators are trying to determine. Can this interview continue voluntarily, or is it about to stop? That's the decision point. Now let's look at the wrong response. The detective says, "Do you want a lawyer?" You respond, "Maybe." The detective says, "Maybe?" You reply, "I don't know if I need one." The detective continues, "Well, that's up to you." And just like that, the interview keeps going. Questions continue. Answers continue. The interrogation continues. Not because you clearly asked for a lawyer, but because you didn't. Now let's look at the correct response. The detective says, "Do you want a lawyer?" You say, "I want a lawyer." That's it. 4 words. No speech. No explanation, no debate, no argument. Just, "I want a lawyer." Those 4 words completely change the encounter, because now the detective knows exactly where you stand. The conversation is no longer about gathering more information through questioning. The decision point has been reached, and you've made your choice clear. Notice what makes those 4 words so effective. They're direct, they're simple, they're unmistakable. A lot of people make the mistake of adding extra language. They say, "Maybe I should get a lawyer." "I think I might want a lawyer." "Do you think I need a lawyer?" Those statements create uncertainty, and uncertainty creates more conversation. But "I want a lawyer" leaves very little room for confusion. That's why it's so important to memorize those exact words. Not because they're magical, not because they guarantee a specific outcome, but because they're clear and clarity matters. Now here's what often happens next. The detective may respond with something like, "Why do you want a lawyer?" A lot of people immediately start explaining. That's a mistake. Instead, simply repeat, "I want a lawyer." The detective says, "If you've done nothing wrong, why would you need a lawyer?" You respond, "I want a lawyer." The detective says, "We can clear this up right now." You respond, "I want a lawyer." Notice the pattern. You're not arguing. You're not debating. You're not trying to convince the detective of anything. You're simply making your position clear. And that's important because many people lose control of the situation by continuing to explain themselves after they've already decided they want counsel. They say, "Well, I just feel uncomfortable. I just think maybe I should have someone here. I mean, I didn't do anything wrong." But, and suddenly they're talking again. The conversation starts moving. The questioning continues. The interrogation stays alive. Remember, the goal isn't to win an argument. The goal is to recognize the decision point, the moment where you either continue talking or clearly invoke counsel. Everything in the room revolves around that moment, not the detective's tone, not the size of the room, not how friendly the conversation feels, just that decision. Will you continue answering questions? Or will you clearly request a lawyer? That's why the exact phrase matters. Say it with me. "I want a lawyer." 4 words. Simple, direct, easy to remember, and most importantly, easy to say under stress. Because stress changes everything. People forget complicated legal language. People forget technical terminology. People forget long speeches. But anyone can remember 4 words. "I want a lawyer." And if you're ever in an interrogation room, that's exactly what makes those words powerful. They're clear when clarity matters most. So remember the trap. The trap is continuing to talk because you think one more explanation will fix everything. Remember the decision point. The decision point is the moment you either keep answering questions or clearly request counsel. And remember the exact phrase. I want a lawyer. 4 words. Nothing more. Nothing less. Because the smartest people in interrogation rooms aren't the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who recognize the decision point before the detective does.